Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good start to the day. Today, I'm going to be joined by Caroline Guillaumin, who's a group head of HR and communications at Societe Generale Group. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm fine. I'm doing great.
It's nice to see you and also have a peer into your lives. I was like looking at your photos behind you before we get started. I saw some music there. I saw some family. It's so nice.
Yeah, it is. I'm not a big fan of this blurring behind me, so everybody can see what is behind.
Yeah, you know why? Because if they're like me, they probably have like washing that hasn't been put away, or the kids made loads of mess. In my household, that's normally why it's blurred, so no one can see the mess.
Yeah, well, I'm working from home. When I'm working from home, I'm actually in my bedroom, so I'm blurring sometimes.
Before we go any further, tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and your journey to where we are today. Because you like many, you didn't plan on working in HR, right?
No, actually, I never planned on working in HR. I actually started my career in very small startups in the IT and technology. And there again, I was not planning to work in IT and technology at all. I mean, I actually had dreams of working for NATO, the UN.
Oh, wow.
And then I had dreams also of being a pilot. So I found myself in this incredible environment with at the time of the booming of the internet and the small startups. So that was great. I spent a lot of time in the US, a lot of time in France. And then actually I find myself working in comms, marketing, comms, sales. And then I decided to really stick to comms because communication, I really loved it. And I joined Societe Generale actually in 11 years now as head of comms for the group. And 4 years ago, my boss actually proposed me to extend my job to HR. And he gave me something like, 10 minutes to actually say yes or no. So I said, I was a little bit stressed.
What was your initial reaction?
Actually, at the start, he wanted me to replace my job of comms to HR.
Completely.
So that was the first, yeah.
Okay.
And I was quite excited because I've been working with HR in my comms job for years. Every time I had a subject, very important subject, engagement of staff or even external attractiveness, I had to work with HR. So I was already very close to this function. So I was very excited, but then he said, I changed his mind and he said, okay, let's extend your job. And I was a little bit stressed, like a lot of women, when you've been asked to do something that is really huge, you will always have this feeling that you're not worth it, that, it's...
No, listen, men get that too.
Not that much. I mean, I see the difference when I see people coming to see me for a job. I mean, I usually have a very different reaction from women.
Really?
To men. Yeah, very interested. But so at the end of the day, he gave me like 10 or 15 minutes to react, and I said yes. And I'm so happy I said yes because I really love my job. But you still managed to retain the comms element as well. But obviously, a big part of HR is communications anyway. Well, it is, but it's very different jobs. I mean, I have to say I'm not a big fan of. I'm not merging actually the two. The two are really separated.
They're separate.
And there are some transversal jobs, project that we're doing together, like on the internal comms, on the way we talk to employees, the project of engagement, attractiveness of the brand for newcomers. I mean, all of this is really done working together. But at the end of the day, I mean, we are quite separated with two teams, two excos, and I'm trying to put really things together when it's necessary and when it makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I should have said that during the introduction. So you're group head of HR and group head of communications. They're two completely separate roles. Yeah. Okay. With one head. Yeah. I don't even know how you even have time to speak to me right now. I'm very organized and I have very long days and very small nights. Where do you fit in the hobbies and passions then? Because I know a big passion of yours is music, right? Yeah. Well, I have have to say that if you talk to me, if you had talked to me like 15 years ago, I think I would not be actually answering the same way. I had chance or not chance actually of having some actually difficult time, like burnout and very difficult times with my professional life, and it made me think and react very differently to and my relationship to work. And actually, I don't believe that you can do this kind of job if you don't have anything next to it to actually keep the passion and the dynamism. And so I'm not sure I know exactly how to describe how I do it, but the fact is, the more I do, outside my work, like music, like sports, and so on, the better I am organized actually in my job. And one thing that I'm seeing more and more is this executives that actually have only one thing in their life, which is work. And I think at the end of the day, when work is finished, it's very difficult for them because they don't have anything next. And so retirement is a very difficult time for them. But also for me, it's just how I deal with the stress and with the difficulties of my job.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you say that because I'm doing a new series called Out of Office where I spend a day with HR leaders all over the world doing some of their passions and hobbies. So last week I was doing mountain biking with the global head of Wellbeing, Andy Holmes from RB, Racket Bankiza. And you can see, and he was talking in the series when it's going to be released next week about how important that time is away from work, you know, going into the woods and mountain biking, resetting and just being in the moment. And not thinking about everything else. And that then leads him to be a better leader, a better father, a better dad in the rest of his life.
I'm a strong believer that it helps on many sides. The first one is, of course, in your leadership and the way you actually practice your job. But there's two other things that for me is very important, is that it's the only moments when I am actually not thinking about my job.
Yeah, exactly.
and that is very important. I'm a musician. I'm also doing flying trapeze, and on this
you're doing flying trapeze.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I didn't expect that one.
No, I know.
So when you season 2 of Out of Office, I'm coming to see you. We're gonna do some flying trapeze.
You have to try. You know that you'll have to.
I will try it. I used to do gymnastics growing up, so.
Okay, so you're in.
Yeah, when I was a dancer, that was a big part. So that's pretty scary though. So, but I'll try it out. I promise. I'll try.
And the second thing that is very important in this moment is that you meet very different people, and so you keep a link to real life. When I'm in my trapeze class, it's not executives from Societe Generale that I'm meeting. I'm actually meeting people that are, and sometimes in very difficult situation professionally, and I have these great moments of sharing with them. Exactly the same way when you're doing music. It's not the same work. So you have the capacity for an HR leader to be in link and in sync with people that are very different from the one that you see on the day-to-day basis. This is fundamental for me.
Yeah, I realized how much that meant because over the last couple of months, I've started picking up some of the old hobbies that I used to do when I was younger. So I started skateboarding again, which was a big passion of mine. I started obviously doing a lot more sports, rollerblading, riding bikes, and just meeting these new communities. I'm part of a WhatsApp group of skate dads. So like dads that have gotten back into skating, right? And I met a few at the park and he was like, oh, you should join our skate dads group. And I was like, am I that old now? I'm joining a skate dads group. But it's this really cool community of people, like you kind of said, that I'm now being exposed to and having conversation with from all walks of life, as opposed to the same people that I would meet just at work or during work. As well.
And even on social class, I mean, very different people having very different difficulties. And for me, it's really feeding my job in an incredible way.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of the work that you're doing now that you're most passionate about. I know DE&I or DE&I is a big focus for you. How are you embedding DE&I across the organization?
Obviously, and I separate a little bit diversity and inclusion, because for me, the first thing that is very important is inclusion. Obviously, my background is my parents were immigrants. So I'm part of the very small minority of people that actually don't have, especially in France. I mean, if you look at the executives, most of them are not from immigrants background. So I'm very passionate about that, but also not as a principle, but just because I feel that we need to have people that feel good in their workplace and feel also good of saying who they are. And, when I joined banking 11 years ago, they were, especially in France, I mean, Anglo-Saxon world is very different because it has been talking about D&I many years ago and working on inclusion, for example, LGBT. 11 years ago, you couldn't even have a conversation about LGBT in a French environment.
Yeah.
Very difficult. You could see people that wouldn't even say, that they were not married for a man, that they were not married with a woman, that they didn't have children. So in this environment, you had discussion and nobody even thought that you could be different. Today, it's very different. And I'm very proud of what has been done in a company like ours, where today, I mean, it's at the highest level of the organization that everybody's talking about inclusion. Everybody's doing things about inclusion and making sure that, anybody can feel good in the workplace and not feeling like, okay, I need to lie and show a picture of a woman to show that I'm, to prove that I'm married with a woman and not a man. So for me, we had a significant jump on that. Where we are still lagging in all companies is really diversity at the highest level in the organization. We have objectives now, so it's moving in the right direction. We have objectives. I mean, we are really very, very positively moving the things. But obviously it's going to take some time because we don't have the pool of talents, because we didn't recruit the right way. We didn't actually speed the careers the right way. We are doing it now. We have been doing it for the last 2, 3, 4 years. But I mean, it's going to take sometimes to really have a parity, a mixity at the highest level. But it's, sometimes I feel like I'm too pessimistic, but it's just that I would like it to happen quicker. Because, when I hear people saying, oh, that's great, we're going to have 30% of women at the exco level. And everybody's very proud of that. And I'm like, 30%? That's not a lot. That's not enough. But then, as an HR, I have to admit that it is very difficult to go beyond in a very short time.
Yeah. And it seems like we've been having this conversation, especially within finance, for a long, long time. Why are there still so few women in leadership roles in finance, do you think?
Because finance, a lot of the profile that we're recruiting are engineers. And I mean, you can only recruit the proportion of people that are going out from schools. So basically in schools that we recruit in, there is maybe 30%, 20% of women. So at the end of the day, if you don't work on the education and make sure that you are pushing a better, more women in the engineer field, in the math field, you're not going to solve the problem. So, when you recruit, if you recruit in a very prestigious university and there's 30% of women and tons of people that are, very competitive into recruiting, there's not much you can do than recruit 30% of women. So at the end of the day, you're lagging behind in the pool of talents. So we need to work on education. We need also to be more open in recruitment and stop actually focusing on some profile. And that's something that we're working on. And at the end of the day, of course, we need to speed women career more than men career. And that's very difficult for men now, because when you're a talented young, person in a company, somehow you feel a little bit frustrated because you know that we're going to, certainly speed the career of women and a little bit less the career of men. but that's life, because basically I think that's really important to push this subject.
Yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, but you are right. It feels like we're talking about 30%, but I think we was having the same conversation 10 years ago. Um, I've been doing this for a while, and I feel like this is a conversation that we're having.
I feel that with the objectives and everything that is linked to CSR, to the corporate social responsibility, we have a lot of targets that we committed to, and that actually extra financial agency, for example, are looking into. Our stakeholders are looking into that.
Mm-hmm.
There is, a name and shame. I mean, there is rankings, there is everything. It's moving. It's moving.
No,
in
it definitely
the
is
right
moving.
direction.
Yeah. How are you holding the organization and yourselves accountable for this? Because, for example, in a number of companies that I speak to, they create these D&I roles or these functions, and the chief diversity officers come in to an environment and that's not inclusive, and they leave just as fast. It's sort of, and it seems that in many ways companies are sort of doing this tick the box exercise, and then all of a sudden that person leaves just as fast as they come in.
No, it's not a matter of the D&I head. It's a matter of the general management. And for us, I mean, we are committed to the board of directors, and I can tell you they are expecting me to respect my commitment and the general management commitment. So actually, we're working on this subject at the highest level of the organization, reviewing the succession planning,
Great.
making sure that we have on each succession plan an international profile and a woman profile, knowing that on French company, we cannot go into racial, religion. We don't have the right. It's illegal to do that. So we find other ways to have more diversity. But no, commitment is not linked to a person. The commitment is linked to what we are saying publicly about our targets. And I can tell you, once you say that publicly, if you fail, it's a real issue.
Yeah, of course. We've seen that happen, right? Yeah.
Somehow it's a good way of actually fulfilling our commitments. I mean,
that's a good point, by the way. Yeah, and we've seen that, right, haven't we, over the last 18 months, where companies have said one thing, yet their actions, they've said it publicly, but then their actions haven't followed. And the public and their employees have called them out, and held them accountable, which I think is great.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, there's different ways of dealing with this D&I subject. The public commitment is one, and it's very important. But also, I mean, we've seen that in France with the board of director and the quotas. And I'm sorry, but since there is this law called Zimmerman-Copé that is asking you as a company to have 50% of female into a board of directors, we have now 50%.
Oh, I didn't know about that, Caroline.
Oh, that's a great law.
Oh, I didn't know about that one.
Like years ago, and it's mandatory for a company, a CAC 40 company, top tier, to have 50% of female in their board of directors.
Oh,
so
wow.
At the start, everybody was very stressed.
I can imagine. Yeah.
A female, so you could have the same female actually in 20 boards, but now it's no longer the case.
Wow.
Because there's new women that are available, that are good level. I mean, really, that you can see the quality of boards now. And honestly, today, nobody has a doubt about the fact that it was the right move. And for me, it was definitely the right move. And we need to continue in different level of the organization.
How are you engaging employees, I say post-COVID as if it's over, but, as you begin to come out, how are you now engaging employees as they return to the workplace?
Well, I would say that first, I think that, it's not over. Unfortunately, so we need to be very careful, but let's say we are closer to the end that we were when we discussed. I would say there's two things. The first, what we see today, at least we see it in many European countries, people are happy to come back to a building, which is unusual because, we are in the Tour de la Défense. That's this huge tower. I mean, I'm not sure 2 years ago, everybody was thrilled of coming. But because we are now into a hybrid type of future work conditions, knowing that we have working from home agreements in most of our subsidiaries, meaning that you can take between 2 and 3 days of teleworking, working from home. And people were so frustrated during this period of time not to be able to talk to their manager in live, to actually meet people, that everyone is really happy of coming back. And we made it actually mandatory to come back since few months, to come back at least 1 to 2 days. Now we're going to get to our working from home agreement, at least in France, where you need to be in the building at least 3 days. And so I would say globally people are happy. You still have few people
Of
that
course.
don't want to come back and so on, but honestly it's still a minority. Now my problem as an HR, and I think that I'm not the only one, is that the relationship to work has changed. And what I see is that, and a few years ago I would say it was more for young people, young generation. They have a different relationship to work. I mean, they don't want to work long hours like their parents did. They want to have CSR type of objectives and so on. Today, what I see is that this COVID has really created something that is um, could be seen, and that's my conviction, as structural, meaning that we all are asking ourselves, what is this relationship to work that we want to have? And it's not a question of generation. It's not like the 20 years old. I mean, I see people of my age asking, and myself, I mean, I actually had COVID. So it made me, and it was a tough one, and it made me actually think a little bit about my relationship to work. And I was talking about what I experienced a few years ago, which was a burnout, which made me think very differently to my relationship to work. And that's why I have this capacity of doing very different things near to my job. What I hear today is people actually wanted to take more opportunity to enjoy life.
Yeah.
That's a fact, because like, we all had this feeling that we were very close to death, even though some didn't have it or
Yeah.
didn't have any problem with it. And also this question of purpose, meaning of their life. It, honestly, I used to have executives in front of me. They didn't give a damn about this notion of purpose. They wanted high remuneration, doing their job. They loved long hours. Family, okay, it's here, it's fine. Um, Today, I see this exact same people having very different relation to the work and asking themselves, are they going to have long hours? Are they going to continue
Yeah.
the same type of job? So that's, for me, is going to be really one of the key priorities of the coming months.
No, I agree. I think it's a wake up call for everyone. Even for myself, like just the fact that I was spending so much, for example, I took for granted the quality time that I had with my daughter. So, going out for lunchtime walks, just having that father-daughter time, being there to see her, just being there to be able to pick her up every day from nursery. I was like, this is what I want. And I had to sit down with my business partner, Shane, and say, we need to make some changes, because I don't want to go back to traveling every month around the world and, coming home, leaving in the morning and not seeing my daughter and coming home and she's already asleep.
It's exactly that. It's this notion of wake up call. It's exactly that. And I mean, honestly, I think there's not one person, one generation that didn't have these little things at the end of the COVID, just saying, okay, I need to, as you said, I need to change something. Now, the real question is it like, okay, sure, okay, it's now, and in 2, 3 months or a year, it's going to be over and we're going to be back to normal, or not? And I have this feeling, and once again, it's a personal conviction, that actually it's more structural. And it doesn't mean that people will not continue to work. I mean, you need to live, you need to pay your
Of
rent
course.
and so on, but you are ready to do more compromise. That's for sure. Even to get a little bit less paid. For example, in France at the moment, everybody wants to go to the region, and leave Paris. Now, if you go and work in Paris, Marseille, or whatever, or in Bordeaux, Marseille, or Nice, or whatever, you will get paid less. That's for sure. And with a level of life which is quite expensive. But they have this feeling that the quality of life that they will have will be quite different. Maybe it's not going to be sustainable, but it is very interesting. But that means an employer, we need to think about that, because that means that we need to make sure that people get something very different when they get to life. And the value proposition that we used to give to employee, I think it's no longer the right one. So we need to think very differently. We were talking very interestingly. We were talking about music, and we have this capacity in the building of people being able to play music in some rooms, and also play with an orchestra and so on. Well, this is something that people want to do because they feel like it's something additional to their quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting. I mean, for HR to think about that. What we need to be not only thinking but reacting very quickly, because the war for talents is really ongoing.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to talk about on this topic. Well, we're seeing already in the questions that candidates are asking as well. Right, speaking to HR leaders every day, they're like, the number one question I get asked in interviews is, "Can I work from home?"
Yeah.
In the past it was, what's the salary? How many holidays do I get? Right, and now like number one question they're asking is, what is the flexible working policy? Like
exactly. And I think companies that decided to have all their employees back, full time, I think it's going to be a problem for them. And also, what the COVID brought to the table is the fact that it helped a lot of managers switching from this vision that if I don't have my employee next to me, that means they don't work. Well, we proved collectively that we were not in the building, and were all working, because and actually with more productivity for some of us. So at the end of the day, it's not going to change. I mean, you have people that work already a lot, and they're going to be working even more from home, because no pause. I mean, you continue Zoom, whatever, Teams. But I think that's a big step that we had from COVID. Is managers that really didn't believe in working from home, and now they understand that it's really something that people needs to do. And of course, it's going to be improving the quality of life. Whatever we say, it does improve the quality of life.
Yeah, and not only do they understand it, they also enjoy it themselves. Having
yeah. I mean, I've seen some executives that didn't have even a clue that they could do that.
Yeah.
And of course, they had to do it.
And it's not easy, by the way. Let's not pretend it's really tough.
No.
I found it much harder managing teams remotely than in face-to-face in the office.
I totally agree. And I think that there again, that's going to be a big challenge. I mean, actually, it's not, when you're completely remote, it's not that difficult. When you're in a hybrid mode.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's harder. Yeah.
This is where it's nightmare. Even, I was actually discussing that like an hour ago. Meetings. Now you have people in a room, you have people in Zoom, Teams, or whatever. And you find yourself having to manage something that is quite difficult. And even on a psychological point of view, when you're abroad, you're actually remote, do you have the capacity to intervene into the meeting the same way? Sometimes no, because you have the conversation ongoing. And I even find myself asking a question about the diversity, actually, because you will have, and that's something that we need to prevent, you will have men back on the office, and you'll have women that will be.
That's a big issue, yes.
And that's a huge issue, because then you will have a gap. You're back to disparity between men and women in the workplace. Men, I'm here, okay? I'm in the coffee machine with my manager when I'm at home, so I don't have this link. And second, when you're remote, do you have the capacity to really talk and say something in a meeting where everybody is talking, and it's very difficult to say something? So the manager that create these meetings will have to take this into account, and that means we'll need to educate. And honestly, I think we're not ready yet to actually completely deal with this situation.
Yeah, I already have female friends that have this notion of I have to be in the office in order to, have access to information, to get that promotion. It's already there. This an unspoken expectation of, and if I don't go into the office, I'm going to miss out on opportunities.
Because workplace is not only formal, it's informal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the digital preventing you from doing. I mean, informal conversation, for me, when I'm not here, of course I work. I mean, I work like hell, I do my meetings and so on, but I don't have this capacity of having people coming to, just passing by, or I go to the canteen and I see people that talk about something that I didn't have in mind, or the union, I take the phone, but then I go there and discuss with them. It's a huge issue. That's why the hybrid is okay, because you have this time of informal, but the full time, remote, for me is a catastrophe. It's not good.
Mm-hmm. We've spoken about some of the challenges. What do you think are some of the biggest opportunities facing companies as we emerge?
I think one of the opportunities is really to disrupt completely the workplace. When we were during this lockdown, I found myself proposing things, for example, for mobility, for reskilling people that previously I tried to discuss with managers, and it's not that they were saying no, but there was not this impression of urgency. Post-COVID and during the COVID, it's amazing how things have been. And once again, it's coming back to what I said about the working from home, for example. I mean, we had working from home, but it was okay. It was 10,000 people. Now we have all our employees working from home, mostly. I mean, retail, it's still being worked on. But basically, it's not even, it's being worked because technically it's complex, but it's not a matter of managerial blocking. So I feel like we're going to have more opportunity about, I think this notion of reskilling, do we take some competency, we actually move people from one job to the other. I think previously manager was telling you, okay, I want the best person, reskilled, is it really as good, is it exactly plug and play for my job? I think that's something that we already pushed, and we see it's also linked to this, once again, corporate social responsibility. I mean, every single person is talking about that. We know that our talents, people we want to recruit, they are asking tons of questions about what we're doing in this field. CSR, our responsibility of employer, all of this, and even our employees. I mean, they want to hear that the company is doing the right thing in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where we're going to have great opportunities to go a step beyond what we're doing today.
Yeah, it's interesting because many of your peers have made like jokes to me during this time saying, Chris, if you can't get sign off now, you never will, right? Now's the time. Now's the time to get, if you're not going to get sign off after what we've just been through, you're probably never going to get sign off. So like make the most of it, make the most of this time, because leaders are having that wake up call, like you said, and understanding, well, we can do this, we can work this way, this can be done as well. So I'm seeing so much disruption.
Yeah, it's amazing, and that's why I think, and once again, I mean, I cannot say that COVID it was a good thing. It was not. It's not. It's a lot of suffering. It's a lot of.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is bad in this COVID pandemic. But the reality is, it helped, and it's coming back to the wake up call, because basically leaders are also having this wake up call about speeding the transformation of their workplace, and also, it's funny because everybody's talking about environment or climate change, and we've been talking about that for years. I mean, it's not new, and it's true. And I'm going to say very humbly on my side, okay, climate change, environment, okay, we're looking at that, we're hearing, but for me, there was not this sense of urgency. And the situation today is that I may not have the sense of urgency, but my kids have. And anyway, if I don't do the right things, my kids want me to have to do the right thing. I mean, I'm seeing my I have a 26 years old, 21 years old. I mean, what they're asking me to do even at work, at home, it's so new. I mean, it's like I have to follow what they want, because otherwise, I mean, they look at me like, "Mom, yeah, you're out of your mind." I mean, okay, stop buying like bottle in plastic. Okay,
Yeah.
that okay, but now it's that's the kind of things I think we're all living around us. So it's a good thing, because somehow, I'm seeing at SocGen, I mean, the plan we have to change everything around our environmental issue. I mean, we already had things that was done very positive about financing. I mean, we stopped most of the financing in coal, and it by the way, all of this has a lot of impact for some countries, and we need to think it's not as simple like, okay,
Of
it's stop
course.
and it's good for everyone. But in any case, I think that it's more than a wake-up call. It's really a way to speed the transformation, the way we work. And even I doing an analogy. Today, everybody is talking about the fact of reuse.
Yeah.
Okay, you cannot waste. It's like, when to be a responsible employer is exactly that. You have competencies within your group. You have people that are worth, have potential. Well, if you don't do the work of making sure that even if the job is out, it happens. Okay, the job is no longer going to be existing in 2 years from now, but the person exists. It has potential, skills. You need to kind of reuse and make sure that you're really using the competency of the person for a new job. And that's new. That's also something that is coming from this vision of no waste, reuse. It's exactly the same way. The analogy can be not proper, but I think that
I
it's
get
a
it.
very
Yeah.
powerful one,
Hmm.
because somehow you're saying that you believe that there is potential in every single person in your company, and that's very powerful.
Yeah. It's a big change though, like you said, culturally, structurally. Yeah. It's a huge change. I'm
It,
interested to know personally though, what when you look back over the last 18 months, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned personally?
that life is short, that's for sure. When you had COVID, tough one. Honestly, it was a difficult time. Um, I was very impressed by the collective that I found around me, and even in my work life. I was amazed by this moment that we lived during the lockdown. Uh, it was so powerful, and I'm talking about the first lockdown, because I would say that then it's very different today. But I this first lockdown, when you had this meeting in Zoom, when you actually get closer from families because you were at distance, isn't that amazing?
I completely relate to that. I started speaking with friends, family, cousins that I haven't spoken to in
Amazing.
years, and spending more time with them, obviously, albeit virtually, than I had in many, many years. You're right.
And this is so incredible. I mean, we had Zoom with families that we didn't see for years. I mean, but they were back in the Zoom. We wanted to get this link. I mean, I had my Zoom with my exco every Friday, and it was very emotional, because we were in our home and we had our kids. I mean, of course, you had kids, a small dollar, whatever, and we got to know most of the family, the cats, the dog. I mean, and I found that it was like, um, this, the frontier between the personal and the work were actually blurring for the good. Not It was not bad, it was good. We needed to reassure ourselves that we were kind of a really close group. So for me, it's really that. And the third things that I find as the lessons from the COVID is exactly what you discussed when we start, is the fact that I cannot live my professional life without having my passions next to it. And it's just not me. It's not possible. And I'm talking people to do the same. I'm seeing a lot of my colleagues, I'm seeing executives, and I keep telling them, try, because I hear people, they say, oh yeah, I used to do violin, 10 years ago, but I don't have time. And I hate this
They always say I
sentence.
don't have time, right? It's true. You do have time. You got to make it.
Exactly. Just change your priority. Just shift a little bit. Just, you're supposed to be in this meeting and it's worth it. And it's not worth it and you know it, but you continue to be in this meeting. Stop being in this meeting. Delegate more. Have the person actually taking the lead on a project that you believe that you're the only one being able to do it. So that's really something that, I learned.
Amazing. Well, Caroline, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure. I'll have to come see you soon. We're going to do some violin lessons and then some trapeze along the way. I'm excited. I'm terrified, but excited at the same time. But I really appreciate you coming on the show. Where can people connect with you? Best here on LinkedIn? Is that the best place for people to connect with you personally?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. Yeah, LinkedIn is really easy, and I usually answer to all the solicitation.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. And for everyone listening on LinkedIn, please take a second to hit the like button. It really helps. Also share and tagging colleagues that you feel will benefit from listening to the conversation. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you again soon, Caroline. All right. Bye for now.
Thank you. Yeah, with pleasure. Thanks all.
Bye.